This is ABTV, Animal Bites Television. For animal lovers, by animal lovers.
Hey, Brian from SnakeBytes here. I'm here at El Segundo Pythons to check out some really cool giant snakes that are extremely colorful. You're watching SnakeBytes. I'm at my good friend Jeff Kelly's place, El Segundo Pythons. Now, for some people, being in a room surrounded by giant pythons would be their worst nightmare, but not for me. This is absolutely heaven for me. I just love the huge snakes, and I've been keeping them since I was a kid, and Jeff certainly has some amazing animals. Let's just go ahead and take a look at a handful of these beauties. Now, this happens to be a retic, and I tell you what, retics will give you a workout for sure. They're really high energy, but this is no normal reticulated python. Just take a look at how stunning that is. This is a Lavender Albino Super Sunfire. Now, the Sunfire gene is a codominant gene, and this happens to be the super version. Now, there's a lot of polymorphism within this mutation, and of course, the Lavender Albino is a recessive mutation. Now, reticulated pythons are some of the giants of the snake world for sure. Some of them can reach well in excess of 20 feet and 300 to 400 pounds. They are such impressive snakes, and I've said this so many times before, reticulated pythons seem to have a higher level of intelligence of most snakes, and they certainly always like to run and give you a huge workout. And I tell you what, we have some really cool snakes to show you right now. Although there's always been reports of monster snakes, what society has had an unclaimed $50,000 reward for any snake over 30 feet in length? A, the Audubon Society, B, the National Zoological Society, or C, the New York Zoological Society? Go ahead and answer down below in the comments and check back later in the show to see if you have the right answer. In this week's Reptile Report Spotlight, we'll be highlighting field herp forums. Go ahead and check out the URL down below or click on the link in the description. Hey guys, before we get back to the monster snakes, I just want to take a second and thank Audible.com for supporting this channel. You guys may not know it, but I'm a huge book fanatic. But with all the work and travel I do, I rarely get a chance to read, so I'm always checking out audio books. As a matter of fact, I just picked up this title I'm listening to right now, which is The Third Chimpanzee. Now, the cool thing is that I'm teaming up with Audible.com, and we're going to offer you guys to not only a free download to The Third Chimpanzee, but also any book of your choosing. It's pretty cool, huh? Just go ahead and hit the URL down below or click on the link in the description. And hey, make sure you show them some love because it's cool they support us. Now let's get back to some snakes. And I'm getting back to the third chimpanzee. Reticulated pythons have always been one of the giant snakes that have mesmerized me, but it's really been the last 10 or 12 years that the whole trade has absolutely blown up on them. And that's mainly because of all of the incredible paint jobs. They really are truly living art. And it was the Lavender Albino gene that kind of started it all. Bob Clark produced it, and ever since then, it's been off to the races. And I gotta tell you, animals like this Lavender Albino motley are just breathtaking animals. Now again, the Lavender Albino is a recessive mutation, and the motley happens to be codominant, much like the motley Super Sunfire that we just showed you. And there is a super version of the motley gene that is basically a patternless reticulated python. There are just so many morphs with these animals. It's truly incredible. And you can tell, oftentimes, they get a bad rap for being mean and aggressive snakes. But there's nothing aggressive about this animal, is there? Whew. She is just absolutely gorgeous. You guys know that I love to share interesting stories about animals just like this. This happens to be a female reticulated python in a nest box. She just laid a clutch of eggs yesterday. Now, look at the size of this animal. When you think of a reticulated python, you're typically thinking a monster snake that's that big around. The most interesting thing is this was her third clutch of eggs. She's actually 7 years old. Just goes to show you that you can keep a reticulated python and it doesn't have to be a giant that's 15 or 18 foot long, and they're certainly reproductive capable at this size. One of the things I find amazing about reticulated pythons is their reproductive behavior. They can literally lay 12 months of the year. Unlike most pythons that are seasonal breeders, these guys are atypical breeders and pretty much get cycled through the amount of food that you put into them. So once you have a female that has went through a little bit of a fasting period or a slow feeding period, and then you really hammer her with food, she'll start to produce follicles, and that's when you put the male in and she'll go through her follicular growth and eventually ovulation. I tell ya, retics are pretty awesome. You guys ready to see just a really big reticulated python? Well, I tell you, this is just a tiger retic, but I'll just give you an idea how much it takes to get an animal like this out of a cage. Now, this is a lot of feet of snakes right here. Now, tiger reticulated pythons really were kind of the first reticulated python mutation, in all honesty. Al Baldoga in Ohio really kind of pioneered the project, although it was actually, I believe, a guy down in Florida named Kenny Herman that produced the very first tiger. You can see, this is a lot of snake, isn't it? And she still has a couple feet left inside here. Let's get her all the way out. And again, I tell you, if you ever wanted to get some aerobic workouts, just get a big python like this. Because I tell you what, you're gonna get your cardio level up and they're gonna work you really hard. But just take a look at that snake right there. Oh, come on, girl. She's fighting me every step of the way. Every time I get one foot out, she goes there. I'm going in after her. Come on, girl. Come on. I tell you, she's gonna win this battle, I think. See if I can. I tell you, that's a lot of will from a snake. Take a look at that animal. Now that is one impressive snake. And I tell you, she is so much stronger than you can imagine. But I tell you, she's puppy dog too. Whew, what a cool animal. Now, certainly one of my favorite morphs in almost every snake that it's expressed in would be a piebald. And sure enough, in reticulated pythons, a few years ago, the pied was proven out. Now just take a look at that. Now basically, piebaldism is a recessive mutation, and this guy's a little dodgy, so I certainly want to watch out for my face, because I'm telling you, it will absolutely come. You can see it's just ready for me right now. If I get close enough, it's gonna go at me, so I'm gonna do my best to not take one, at least not in the nose. But as you can see, the piebald is basically void of all color in that specific area, giving it this beautiful white patching along with the amazing color too. Now, the other thing that's really interesting about piebalds is it kind of messes up the normal pattern as well. And you can see right here, it almost looks like a golden child retic, but it's not. This is absolutely just a normal piebald reticulated python. Can you imagine this snake when it's 15 or 16 foot long? Whew, now that's gonna be gorgeous. And I'm gonna put it back before it comes out. It is so ready to come right at me right now. It's pretty hard to keep up with all of the crazy paint jobs in reticulated pythons, but I tell you what, these are some rare ones right here. This happens to be a Rennick Ghost, which is a recessive mutation on its own that's not compatible with basically any other form of albinism or hypomelanism, so it's kind of a cool animal. But when you put it into the sunfire, holy cow, do you see all these oranges that are coming out in the side? For whatever reason, when you mix the sunfire with the Rennick Ghost, my gosh, does that make a super cool animal. And again, there's only a handful of these in the entire world. I'm not ready to say that reticulated pythons are as polymorphic or have as many paint jobs as, say, a ball python or a leopard gecko, but they certainly are starting to catch up pretty quick. This happens to be another pretty rare mutation that you just don't see very often. It's a recessive mutation that's called an anthrax. Now, it's primarily a pattern mutation here, where you can see these really big stripings completely wax out the animal, and just take a look at that head. It's almost like a silvery head, and the majority of them have some form of cross on them as well. And because this project hasn't been bred into a lot of different things, you have no idea what the future is going to be. This could be a key to some really cool looking animals down the road. Well, obviously these giants have to start out as babies, so I want to just show you a handful of really cool, smaller pythons that are eventually going to get a lot bigger. This one happens to be the gem for sure. This is actually the only one in the entire world. That's right, guys. I'm showing you something that is pretty cool. This is a Lavender Albino Platinum Tiger Golden Child. That's right, that's a lot to say. And that's a lot of genes going on right now. But just look at how amazing that looks. It's always just such a pleasure to be holding something knowing that this is it. There's not another one out there. It's truly, truly an honor. But again, look at how gorgeous this is. When this thing hits 15 foot, oh my God, this is going to be incredible. And just think about the genetic powerhouse that it is. You breed this thing into anything, and there's so many genes in here, it's going to make some killer animals down the road. This happens to be a platinum golden child. Now the golden child gene is basically like a dominant gene. So when you breed it to a normal, half the babies are going to come out on average looking like a golden child. Now the platinum is an interesting gene because it's actually het for 3 different types of white reticulated pythons. So it gets a little bit complicated, but also the platinum gene really increases the color a lot. As you can see in this golden child here, this thing is going to be an absolute ripper when it gets to about 10 foot long, and all of that platinum color starts to come out. Take a look at this one here. This happens to be an albino tiger golden child. Again, the albino would be the recessive part. The golden child and tiger are both co-dominant animals, so it's pretty cool. But just take a look at this one's eyes. I mean, that thing is super cool. There's just something about reticulated pythons and their eyes, and when you add all those genes to it with that albino eye, that thing is really cool. And this happens to be a platinum motley. So again, we talked about the platinum gene being attached to the white snake producing gene, and of course the motley being a co-dominant mutation here. Again, reticulated pythons are pretty badass. Now let's talk about Burmese pythons. Of course, the snake that started my passion for reptiles. I've told the story a million times before. My very first pet snake happened to be a Burmese python, and it's really fueled my fire for these incredible snakes ever since. But mine look nothing like this. This happens to be a caramel albino, and it's a joint project between Jeff and Jay over at Prehistoric Pets. It's a recessive mutation, and it's kind of lacking the majority of the black pigment, but still has the tyrosinate, leaving that kind of purpley hue to it. And just take a look at that head. Oh my God, is that absolutely incredible. It really kind of saddens me as I hold such a gorgeous snake like this, knowing that I'll never be able to actually own one. Because they're added to the Lacey Act, you're not allowed to cross state lines with them, and unfortunately no one in the state of Michigan has caramel albinos. So I'll sit here with a lot of envy and play with this Burmese python. Now this is an animal that you're really going to hardly ever see in any type of snake, and that's a triple recessive mutation. It is so difficult to have those genes line up to get all 3 genes together. So what this is actually both albinos, both caramel albino and normal albino, as well as a granite mutation. And I tell you what, that's one sick animal. Take a look at these beauties right here. These are actually hypo Burmese pythons, which is a codominant mutation. When bred together, they actually produce white snakes, which are ivories, and they're typically pretty feisty animals too. Now these actually happen to be het for green or patternless Burmese too, which kind of messes with the pattern a little bit. This would be a typical more hypo normal Burmese that you would see. And then take a look at this one right here. This is where that green or patternless animal really messes with it. Look at that striping. Now that's one gorgeous snake. Now this is a little snake with a really big attitude. But this happens to be pretty interesting because it's a hybrid between an Indian python and an albino Burmese python. And again, this guy has quite the attitude for sure. You can see he got me really close because that one got me right on the nose. But that's all right, because it's a cute little thing. And I tell you what, when Indian Burmese crosses come out albino, the orange just absolutely explodes. And although this little bugger might be a nasty little guy, ooh, you can see he just got my finger right there. He does not like being handled. It's still gonna be a gorgeous snake when it gets bigger. We certainly can't talk about giant snakes and not highlight the green anaconda. Now certainly it's not the longest snake in the world, but it certainly is the heaviest bodied animal. This particular animal is Megan Kelly's, Jeff's sister, and she has this amazing knack to tame out green anacondas. Now you guys have seen me handle green anacondas before. It has never turned out very pretty. As you can see, this one is puppy dog tame, and it's a great way to end this segment on big snakes. I hope you guys have enjoyed it half as much as I have, because I tell you what, this has been one awesome experience for me. Although there's always been reports of monster snakes, What Society has an unclaimed $50,000 reward for any snake over 30 feet in length. If you said C, the New York Zoological Society, you're 100% correct. Good job. So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It certainly was amazing to see all these incredible snakes and such cool paint jobs. I really want to thank Jeff Kelly for all his hospitality. Make sure to check out his Facebook page. You can check out the URL down below or click on the link in the description. And as always, I was Facebooking and tweeting my way through it. So make sure to follow me over at SnakeBytesTV. Till next week, you've been watching Snake Bites.
Back to common sense, you know, if you see a sign near the water and it says there's crocodiles in there, obviously, you know, be smart, don't swim.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not that hard. You know, living with crocodiles, you know, I've been doing it most of my life, and with dogs. I've got a dog.
This is ABTV.